Hello everyone, good morning, and welcome to the deep dive into PowerApps, building apps that mean business without writing code. So I am Darshan Desai, and I am the group program manager. I run the product management team for PowerApps. A little bit about myself. I've been in Microsoft for a little over 11 years now, and building apps is something that is very close to my heart. The first 8 years in the company, I spent that in Visual Studio and Visual Studio Online. So that was building apps with code, and then I moved over to some of the ALM concepts in Visual Studio Online and Visual Studio Team Services, such as testing and DevOps and application insights and so on. Then I worked for a bit in the Power BI team and on the on-prem pieces there. And since the beginning of this year, I joined the PowerApps team, right? So it's very exciting what we are doing here, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen some demos already, and I'm excited to share that today. Now, I have the pleasure of speaking on a Friday morning as well, and so thank you for showing up and prioritizing this session, because we have lots of priorities on the last day of the conference. And since it's a Friday as well, and I generally like to keep my sessions very interactive, so I want all of you to participate. So this is what we will do, right? So I'll ask you to start off things. I'll ask you a set of questions. And if the answer is yes, I want you to not raise your hands, but clap, right? So louder the noise, the more the yes, OK? So did you have a good time and have fun at the conference? Awesome. Awesome. That's awesome. That's what I thought. How many of you have heard of PowerApps or played with PowerApps? Oh, thank you. That's fantastic. How many of you have attended a session of PowerApps in this conference already? Okay, that's awesome. So here is the thing, though. That's one problem of going last, because I will have to repeat a few slides and a few demos, but hopefully I will show you some new stuff as well, things that are coming up, and this will be interesting for all of you too. And the last question, how many of you consider yourselves to be experts in PowerApps? Pratap can clap. Well, Pratap is, I think, the biggest expert in the world, probably, in PowerApps at the moment. But other than that, all of the rest of you are in the right session. Okay? So with that, let's get started. And since we have a lot of content to cover, I would want to keep the Q&A for the end. If we get ahead of ourselves, we could do some in the middle. But otherwise, I'll keep questions at the very end. But feel free to keep clapping throughout the session and keep interacting. I absolutely don't mind that. So first, let me talk about why PowerApps, right? Why should you even care? What is PowerApps, and why does it matter to you? And then we will go into a little bit of a tour of PowerApps, which is looking at extending some of the Office 365, SharePoint, as well as dynamic scenarios, look at the data platform for PowerApps, the common data platform, and some of the administration and ALM scenarios that are coming up. And a lot of this will be demos, I promise. It's boring to sit through slides for an hour or 75 minutes. And then after that, we will talk about customer stories. I will share some of things what customers are already doing. And we have Michelle from Avanade here today, who's going to come here and show a demo of what they have done with PowerApps. And finally, the most important part, how much does it cost, and when is it available, and then what's coming going forward, right? The packaging and roadmap section. And we will end with Q&A. I intend to keep at least 5 minutes for Q&A. Okay? So why PowerApps? When you're building business apps, it is hard to keep everyone happy. Why? Why is it hard to keep everyone happy? It's because there's always conflicting priorities. There's conflicting priorities between the people who build and deploy these apps, which is either IT or the business units, and the actual users of the app. So the IT wants these apps to be secure, because you don't want organizations' data to leak out, or either intentionally or unintentionally. It needs to be scalable. So you build a solution, and then it should scale to hundreds or thousands of employees within the company. You want it to be all managed, so you know what's going on, who is using what, and and have a way to control that. We don't want to create silos of data or islands of data, and hence you want all of your apps and your data to be all integrated. And finally, depending on the industry you're in, the country you're in, there are lots of regulatory compliances, and then you want all of your apps to be compliant as well. So these are the set of asks which are non-negotiable or critical for business apps. At the same time, what do the users of these apps, the business users, stakeholders, what do they want? They expect these apps to be fast. Nobody can sit around waiting for tens of seconds for an app to just load. They want them to be iterative. New requirements come up. Business processes change. And as we evolve, we are evolving. We are in an agile world. So as we evolve quickly, they want the apps to keep up with the change. The next one, the most important one probably, they expect the apps to run cross-platform, which means they run on the browser when they are at work on their PC or their Mac, and at the same time, they also run on your phones, right? They expect, if there is a shuttle booking app, your business users to book shuttles to move between offices, as a simple example, they expect it to work like Uber when they are on their phones, and when they're booking from their web, it also it works equally well, right? And built for that device. And finally, they want them to be beautiful, look good, and easy to use. So how do we make sure now that both of these sets of priorities are met together? And that's where the challenge is. That's where there is conflict. That's why it's hard, right? So let's look at a few ways of how you can build such apps. There are a few apps which are critical to the business for which you can use custom software development. If it's a mobile app, you could use Xamarin or build native apps, right? And if it's a web app, you could actually have pro developers build a .NET app for you, or an app using some of the other technologies there. But the challenge with that is it requires a lot of time. On an average, it takes 3 to 12 months for such an app to be built, and it takes a lot of money, into hundreds of thousands of dollars, just to get the first version deployed. And then there is incremental costs for keeping them up to date and to keep up with the pace of change. But then there are a few apps in every organization which qualify that, which meet that bar, so you build those. And then there are lots of SaaS solutions. So you could go in there, swipe your credit card, and buy a SaaS solution, and straight away have a turnkey solution to start using it. The challenge with that is every business and business process has something unique, something custom. And SaaS services are often built to solve a specific problem, which they do very well, but they are hard to customize. Plus, many of the SaaS solutions end up creating islands of data and silos, which is something that, as IT or as an organization, we would want to avoid that, right? And so, what about all of the other needs that your business has? There is a ton of apps. There's a huge backlog of business apps out there, which either where you can't find a good SaaS solution, or you can't spend the time and money for custom software development, right? So how do you build these custom business apps? And that is where PowerApps and the business application platform comes in. And what we are trying to do here is trying to change the way we build and deploy and manage business apps, okay? So before I jump into PowerApps, and I promise I'll be quick, because for the folks who have already seen this slide in other sessions, but I think it's important to provide this context into why PowerApps is important and why should you even care. So as Microsoft, now we have this business application platform, which is a complete platform for you to build your business apps and then to deploy and manage them. So any business problem, if you can see it, there are 3 phases of it. You can't improve what you can't measure. So the first step is to measure something. And once you measure, you get these insights. You want to take some action on top of those insights. That's act. So there's measure, and then there is act. And finally, once you have acted on it once, you would want to automate this and make it repeatable, so there is no manual intervention required each time, right? And what are the tools and technologies that allow you to do this? So the first set of tools, which are sort of do not require any coding, or we want to enable power users or business analysts or citizen developers to do this, we call these the power users tools. And there is Power BI, which lets you measure things and provide insights. Power Apps let you build apps to take action. And Microsoft Flow lets you automate your workflows and automate actions so that it can work in a repeatable fashion, even when somebody is not sitting right there and taking that action manually, right? So Power BI has been around, and lots of you are already using it. So PowerApps and Flow, both of these products went into preview earlier this year. And there were other sessions. Stephen here is the GPM for Flow, and he had a session yesterday. And I encourage you to watch the recording. Today, I'm going to focus on PowerApps. So now, whenever I talk, as I was talking to some of you and many others at the booth, and as well as in some of the other sessions as well, there's always this challenge of the problem with these low-code, no-code tools in the past has been there's always a ceiling. And then there is a cliff. You only do something, and then if you want to extend it, you fall off the cliff. There is no way to do it, and you have to go and rewrite the solution. As a first principle, that is something that we wanted to avoid in the business application platform. So that is why we have the Pro tier. So when you hit a ceiling or the limits of the tool saying, hey, this is how much I can do as a power user, and for adding some more functionality or extending this stuff, adding new requirements, or I want a pro developer or an IT pro to take over and do stuff, we have the Pro tier, which in case of BI is Azure Data Analytics, there is SQL Server BI, and IoT. In case for actions from Power Apps, you can easily call into Azure App Services and Azure Functions, which are deployed on Service Fabric. As well as in automation, there is Logic Apps, there's API management, and BizTalk. So these products are very well integrated. And I'll show you some of those demos on how to integrate an Azure function with the Power Apps and so on. So that way, if you want to extend the capabilities of these Power tools, you can always, there is always this option of a pro developer writing one of these things here to extend the capabilities. And finally, what's important not to create silos is to operate on a single set of data. Right? So we want one source of truth, and every app that you build, every Power BI dashboard that you build, and Flow that you build should be able to operate on that data platform. So we have two things. The common data model is the data platform for the business application platform here, which means Power BI, Power Apps, and Flow will all be able to talk to the common data model. And I have slides to cover what the common data model is. There was a deep dive session already on Wednesday, if you're interested. And then we can connect to your existing data, because we know your data is already stored in SharePoint, in Exchange, in CRM, and AX, and Salesforce, and all of these other sources, as well as on-premises in SQL Server, and SharePoint, and other custom software. So we have connectors and gateways, a single set of connectors and gateways that connect across your existing data sources. So existing data sources, as well as creating new data or extending the data, all of these tools will be able to operate on. So this is it's no longer just a vision, because we have all of these products at different stages of maturity already, and this is sort of where we are already heading as a company. So this is the context in which I wanted to provide for why you should care about using Power Apps to build your business apps, because you get all of these other things along with it, so that you can have a business application platform that your organization or your customer's organization can take a bet on. With that said, let's dive into Power Apps now. So Power Apps specifically is a central piece of the business application platform, and it's a service for creating and using custom business apps across platforms. So the apps, so what do I mean by that? So firstly, you connect to the data and systems you already use, and the data could be on-premises or in the cloud. Power Apps just lets you pull data from multiple sources and mash that up. Or you could just start creating new data that you need, right? If you do not already have data, you could even use our data platform to start creating new data to either extend or for some new scenarios as well. And I will go into the details and show you demos of what that means. Now, once you connect to data, you create apps, forms, workflows without having to write code. I'll go into the demo in a few minutes. It's like PowerPoint and Excel-like interface for power users, business analysts, to create these apps easily with, of course, extension points wherever you need them, if you need additional business logic. But on its own, without a single line of code, you can write an application that runs cross-platform. So all of the apps, you build them once in PowerApps, right? And all apps, without exception, will run on the web browser as well as on your phones, any phone, any tablet, right? Both as native apps as well on the phone. I mean, within a native app in a native experience or using a browser, okay? So that's an introduction to PowerApps. And before I dive into the building apps portion, let's take a quick look on what some of these apps that are built using PowerApps looks like and how do you get started. So this is powerapps.microsoft.com. So when you go there today, we have been in public preview since April 29th. So you could just go there and sign up, if you haven't already, with your AAD account. It's open to everyone, so you could just go and sign up. And once you go in there, the first thing you will see automatically here on the landing page is a bunch of samples. Samples are there to show you some scenarios where it could be used, as well as for you to start learning about building, how you can build your apps, right? So we had these samples with static data before. Just last week, we have introduced these samples that connect to your data sources. So for example, there are samples here that connect to Office 365. There are samples that connect to Salesforce, Trello, Wunderlist, and so on. So what these samples do is they take your credentials, connect to your data sources, and quickly create an app to show what an app looks like with your data, not just sample data that is provided, put in there by Microsoft, okay? So let's look at one of these samples here. Let me pick cost estimator, for example, right? So this is a sample which, if you are a flooring company, somebody who is walking in to somebody's house, your client's house, to provide an estimate of how much the flooring, if you want to change the carpeting or change the wooden flooring, how much that would cost, right? So there is a use case for this app to be mobile, because when they are traveling out there, they either have their phones or their tablets. They can't carry their PC with them. At the same time, when they have tablets, or if someone walks into my office and asks me for an estimate, I want to do that on a PC, on a bigger screen, right? So if I open it right here, I can open it either in a tablet layout or in a phone layout. So I can quickly go and open it here in a tablet layout. It asks for camera, and right there, the app starts running, right? So here is my app. This is built using PowerApps. It's a sample. It starts running, and I can do things with it. So now what's interesting is I also want to switch over to the mobile view and show you how this app runs on the phone. Okay? Okay, so here is, I am on my iPhone here, and you have a PowerApps app. And when I launch PowerApps, it shows all the apps that I have. One of the recent things we added again last week, or no, this week, based on feedback was, especially for us in Microsoft, we have lots of apps because our team, we test out our own products, so we build lots of apps. So there's a lot of clutter here. Oh, I think I clicked something by mistake. That's the thing when you make it too easy to launch. Okay, so what we added here is, we added this categorization so you can mark apps as favorites. So the apps that I always use and I want to pick up, they show up under favorites right now, right? So Cafe Menus is, for example, an app built by somebody in Microsoft, which lets me look at the menus of different cafeterias to decide where which day, which cafe has good food, and so decide where to go there. There is an app that we use for submitting interview feedback. There is an org browser, and so on. So these are real apps that I use, right, for my work as well. And MSIT is building a lot of apps to move our employee experiences for Microsoft to mobilize that using PowerApps. That is in progress already. So the other thing I have here is samples. So on day 0, you will always have these samples. So let me launch the same app that I launched there, Cost Estimator, over from a phone. And here I see my list of clients I'm supposed to meet on a particular day. And right now I am at this place in Redmond. This is sample data at Olivia Gill's residence. And it tells me where I am, right? This is the map control. And it an app can use the native device capabilities like location and camera and all the sensors. So let's start with an estimate. So I want to get new floors for my, typing is hard on stage, living room. And the length of my living room is like 20 feet and width 15 feet. I'm filling up this form on my phone, and it is optimized for my phone form factor. It asks me to select a style. I want hardwood for my living room. It gives me a list I can pick from. I choose this. I can choose to add photos of my current flooring. And let's see. Oh, all right. I can tap here, tap. So I take 2-3 pictures of my current flooring to give an idea to the contractors who would be there to see what it looks like and what kind of things are involved in that job. Say done, the photos are automatically attached, and then I can go ahead and review this estimate. Here it calculated all of this estimate. I could do a price adjustment to do a comparison, and if there is a quote from another vendor and I want to match it, I can increase this discount to 15% and something like that. And then here is an estimate. At the end, it gives me an option to sign this. So this is touch as well as pen. I don't like what I'm doing. I clear it out. This is my signature here. I say submit this estimate. And at this point, it brought up my mail client. Because sending out this estimate, it has to send out an email. And it is sending this estimate from me to Olivia. And if I click send, the mail client just sent out an estimate to someone at Contoso, right? So that was an application or a use case for using an app, how I can quickly use a mobile app to increase my productivity, and the same thing works on mobile on a phone and on a web, right? So that was a quick tour of how you can use one of these apps. Now that you've seen an example of an app that can be used, let's talk about how can you build these apps, right? What did it take? What would it take for you or your people in your organization to build such an app? So for building these apps, we have something called as the PowerApps Studio. So when you go to the same portal that I showed and you click on New App, you launch the PowerApps Studio, which allows you to build apps. And we have that both as a Windows app as well as it's also available on the web browser. So like I told you earlier, it lets you craft your screens in a visual designer that is WYSIWYG. It is PowerPoint and Excel-like. The PowerPoint part of it helps you craft all your screens. There is Excel-like formulas that help you write your logic in there. You can take advantage of your device capabilities like camera, pen controls, and so on, like I just showed you. You can also extend the capabilities of these data sources, and you can focus on what you need, right? So that's about the building of these apps part. Now, what data can you connect to? I talked about this a little earlier. We have a number of connectors out of the box for you to connect to either cloud data sources, as well as using a gateway, you can also connect to your on-premises data sources. Now, I will show that. I will cover how you can connect to data sources in a demo in a little bit. And once you build these apps just run seamlessly on web or on a phone. Okay? With that introduction, let's dive into building an apps using PowerApps. So for the demo scenario, I was thinking about what demo should I do, right? And that is one of the problems of going last. We had a number of sessions and a number of breakout sessions and theater sessions this week. And all of the demo scenarios I had prepared were already used up by other presenters. And I don't want to be the one who comes here and shows you the same demo. So as I thought about it, one scenario that came to mind where I was actually thinking of building an app was just last week, James broke his laptop, right? His laptop screen stopped working. And so he sends a mail to our business admin. So James is on my team, by the way. So he sends a mail to our business admin, Vicky, saying, hey, Vicky, my laptop is not working anymore. I need a new laptop soon. And she sends him a link. And that link is a link to a SharePoint list, which has all the available approved Microsoft devices list. And then James needs to pick one of them and then send her a mail back saying that this is what I want to order. Then she's going to check for availability, get approval, and do that. So it's a manual process today, right? And so for James as well, he would like to look at these models, compare them, and order it from there. He would want a self-service tool and not be, again, blocked. Again, if Vicky is oof, he's blocked for a few more days and so on. And on the other side, Vicky also wants this automated because she doesn't want to manage this process. Now, this is one of those apps which I mentioned, this is not in the handful of apps that IT or business would spend money on automating, because this is not a very frequent occurrence that you replace laptops or devices for employees, because we do that once in 3 years for each employee. And this is a problem that the ROI was not justified for the business, and therefore it was never automated. So I thought, how about building an app for this scenario, for an employee to place an order for a device and making it in a self-service manner, right? So I got a list of devices to start with for this demo. And to make the demo interesting, what I did was I put this list on an on-prem SharePoint list, right? Instead of, in Microsoft, we use SharePoint Online, and I'll show you that list later as well. But I put this in an on-prem list. So here, if you look at my URL, this is HTTP Office. It is an on-premises server. It's definitely not SharePoint Online. And so here is a list. It has a list of devices, and all of those URLs are pictures, and it has device properties like, what is the cost, and what is the storage, what is memory, and blah blah blah. Things that you would need to look at a device before you decide which one do you want. Okay. So now let us start building. Let's try creating an app that connects to that list and see what that looks like. So I launch. This is PowerApps Studio. So this is a Windows app which you use to build create apps. So when I launch the Studio here, I see that it gives me multiple ways to start. I could either start from my data, which means I connect to the data I already have in a variety of data sources, or I can start with a blank app, or I could start with some templates to see how it works. In this case, I pretty much know that I want to start with that SharePoint list, so let me start with my data. And it shows all the connections I already have, but in this case, I want to create a new connection. So it's a new connection, and this gives me a list of connectors here which are available for me out of the box. So I pick SharePoint, because in this case, it's on a SharePoint list. And here, this one gives me a choice. Let me zoom in for you. So right here, it gives me a choice. What kind of SharePoint list do you want to connect to? I know a lot of you have seen a lot of SharePoint Online integration demos in multiple sessions this week. So I got a bunch of questions on how do I connect an on-premises list. And this is how you do it, right? So PowerApps can connect to SharePoint on premises 2013 and 2016, and all it needs is a gateway, which you install on one of your on-premises machines, and all the gateway needs is an outbound 443 port, which is the same port used for HTTPS. No holes in the firewall, no inbound ports needed, right? It uses service bus to securely transfer data between the cloud and on-premises. All of your data lives on-premises. It's just that it is viewed in an app which runs in the cloud, right? So your data still lives there, and all of your policies still apply. Let me go and put in my credentials here. And in this case, I already have a gateway. I have multiple gateways that I can choose from. If not, at this step, I would be prompted to install a gateway, and all I have to do is install a gateway. It takes less than 5 minutes. Let me pick a gateway that I want to use here and say connect. So this is now setting up a connection with my on-premises SharePoint, and now that connection has been established in a matter of seconds. Let me go and pick the URL of the list that I wanted here. So this is the list that I wanted to go to. And it is now connecting to that particular SharePoint site, and it pulls up all the lists that were there. So what I wanted to do is pick this list, the MS device order list. I choose that list from this selection here, say connect, and now, since I started start from app from data, what PowerApps does is tries to auto-generate an app for me. It will be, when it is generated, it will be a fully functional app to get me started, right? We know that oftentimes this is not the final app that you would want. but this is a starting point for you to then start customizing and building your app. So here, the app is already generated. Again, it took just a few seconds here, right? So, and it picked a few fields out from that list automatically for me. And if I look at data sources, it says that, tells me that it is connected to the MS device order list. And then what I can do is I can go and change the layouts. I can now start customizing. This is the app builder experience. So on the left, you have the different screens. So this is a 3-screen app. This is much like PowerPoint. And I'll show you in a minute how you can type formulas here. This is the Excel-like interface. This is how you build apps. And this is a completely WYSIWYG interface. The app at this point is fully functional. So if I click play here, run, this app is just running. And if I hit the save, button right now, I could even run this app from my phone, right? So this is a fully functional app right from Go. And as you do changes, they are reflected in real time, and the app is actually updated real time. So the first change, let me see. I don't like this layout. Let me go and change it, change the layout to something where I can see a picture of the device. And as you see here, it changed the layout for me, but then I have to map this to a picture field. So it was mapped to a name field here, and what I'm going to do here is I am going to map this to this item dot, and as I type the dot, this is the formula that I'm typing here. As I type dot, there is IntelliSense, so it actually automatically tells me what fields are available. So I want to pick the photo field here, so I pick photo, and boom, it automatically updated it with all the pictures. And this one is a device type. I don't care about a device type. I want really the device name here. So I pick the device name, and then it updated that. And this one, probably, I could update it to something else as well, like what is the storage, because that's the thing people care about the most, apparently, right? Something like this. So in a matter of minutes, now I'm customizing this app. So one more thing that a lot of you asked is these apps should not look like stock apps. I should be able to theme them and make them look like my company wants to, from a color perspective, from a logo perspective, and so on. So let me show you how easy it is to do that, right? So you go here, right, and then you go to design, click on theme. It automatically gives you a bunch of inbuilt themes, and you can control each and every pixel, of course. So you can choose the right color and the right texture for each for any part of the app. But let me use one of the default themes. Since we are in the city of Coca-Cola, let me go with red. I want my app to look red, right? And just like that, I have themed my app to look red. And then it's a 3-screen app. The second screen really is a list. The first screen is a list view. The second screen is a detail view. And the third screen is a create new item view, right? So this is what we generate by default. So in this case, I'm placing a device order. I'm really not modifying that list. So I will go ahead and delete the other 2 screens because they are not very useful for me. And I'll have to add add another screen as well, right? So I can start doing this. I can go and start inserting. I can start inserting a new screen and so on, right? Now, at this point, I'm customizing this app. The other thing I want to do is change the layout from a phone layout into a tablet layout as well, because this app would most likely going to be used on the PC or on a tablet, and even in a phone, it's actually better if you view it in a wider screen. It helps you in comparing and stuff like that, right? So and yesterday night, when I thought of this idea, I started building such an app, and it took me an hour. So let me actually switch over and show you that app that I customized, and using the same data source, and show you what that looks like. And it took me a little over an hour to build that. So instead of building it live, I don't think in the next 5 minutes I'll be able to do justice to that. So let me open the app that's connecting to the same data source. I'm a little more ahead. I have not yet finished it 100%. It doesn't look beautiful yet, but it's getting there, right? So this is a version of the same app connecting to the same data source, which is running in a tablet mode now. See, it's also red, right? Because that is my theme. That's the theme that is the color for my company. And here I've added a few more things. So this was the device list, the exact same list that we pulled in the previous app. So I also have another list here. To make it more real, in addition to the machines list, I pulled the OEMs list, which gives the list of companies or the manufacturers for these devices. Okay? And now there is a lookup between these 2 lists, because there is a manufacturer ID in my machines list and the manufacturer there. So what I did here was that this control, I bound it to filter based on the machine, based on the OEM that I select. So if you see, look at this expression here. Where's my mouse? Sorry. Sorry? E, okay, that's fine. So here is this expression here which says I want to filter this gallery that you see here by what I have chosen on the left. That's what I have done this. The other thing I wanted to show you is there is conditional formatting here as well. So if the price and that condition is defined in the fill, so here there's a different properties of this particular control. So if I go over to fill, what I am doing here is, again, if price is greater than $1,000, because this is my policy, convert business policy, fill this with an orange red. If not, the default fill is light gray. This way, James, when he's ordering his laptop, knows that if you order something about $1,000, he needs an exception because he's violating policy right there. Okay? And then I added a quick checkbox here for comparing these things and built another screen out which lets you compare. Okay? So let's see how this app runs. When I run this app, on the left, there is this list of manufacturers. So I look at Asus. That's the laptop I have. So I look at this. I click on it. I want to compare this. This is one thing that's interested. Let me also look at what Lenovo has. I compare these. And as you see here, this is incrementing counters. This is based on a lookup. And this is actually counting the number of list items that I have selected here. And then let me also look at some of Microsoft's things. There's a Surface Pro here, Surface Pro 4. So let me select that and compare these 3 items. So as I compare these 3 items, now I have built a second screen which lists details of these 3 items. And I have listed additional details here. And I said this app is not yet complete. There are more fields to be added in here. But when I select one of these laptops, the final piece here is I have added an approver email, and by default, it is my manager's email, Frank, who is here, and I'll show you how that is pulled. And then I hit submit for approval, and it sends off an email and kicks off a workflow here using Microsoft Flow, which now Frank needs to approve for my order to go through. And then once he approves, my order is, there is an item created in a SharePoint list and a mail sent out to a vendor to place an order. Okay? So that's the app, and I also want to show you how I got Frank's email ID. And for this one, what I did was I added an additional data source, which is Office 365 users. Now, in addition to the SharePoint list, this also talks to Office 365. And using the Microsoft Graph API, it can now determine who my manager is, right? And the expression that I have here for this is, if you look here, there is Office 365 users.manager. So it navigates to my manager, gets my manager's email, and fills it in by default. It's a text box. I can override it. If Frank is oof, like for his wedding, then I can have his manager be an approver. I could change that, right? So that gives me the flexibility, at the same time picks all the sensible defaults. So that was in a nutshell, a quick tour of how you can build an app connected to a SharePoint list, a SharePoint on-prem list, and also introduce things like lookup, conditional formatting, theming, and connect with other connectors and with Flow, right? And all of this took me in an hour. It will take probably slightly longer for someone who is new, but it's not rocket science. It's not a matter of weeks, or you don't need pro developer skills to build this app. I did not write a single line of code yet to get a fully functional app which is cross-platform. Okay, so this was one way to get started and build the app. I show you SharePoint on-prem list. Now I have a version of this list on SharePoint Online. And with the modern list experience, which is rolling out already, what we have also added here is in the SharePoint Online list. This is the SharePoint Online version of that same list. If you see the URL now, it's microsoft.sharepoint.com. It's SharePoint Online. I have this MS devices list here. We have added, working closely with the SharePoint team, a PowerApps button right here in the ribbon of the list, right? This will be the default experience when modern lists rolls out. So in addition to starting to create apps from the PowerApps Studio, from the PowerApps side of the world, you can also start creating an app right here, and let me show you how. From right here, you click on that button and say create an app. All I need to give it is a name, say Ignite Demo 2016, click create, and this automatically launches the PowerApps Studio in the web with that list pre-selected. So in a matter of seconds, you have an app created from that SharePoint list very much similar to the app that we created, but right in context of SharePoint, and then you can go back and link it right from the view of the SharePoint list so that users can access it right from there when they, in context from within a SharePoint list without having to ever leave and get a new app or remember a new URL. Okay? So, and as you see in the background, the Web Studio is loading up here. It's creating the app. It's creating all the screens, interpreting data, trying to put together the best layout for the app. And when it is done in a few seconds now, right now it is saving that app back. And here you have the exact same app. I can go back and change the layout, can do pretty much the exact same things, right? And this is another way for you to get started and start creating these apps completely within a web-based experience, fully integrated within SharePoint. With that, let me switch back to slides. And what I showed you was how you can get started, connect to your existing data sources, whether it is on-premises or in the cloud, right? Whether it is Office, or I showed you Office examples with SharePoint and Office users. You could connect to other data sources as well from Microsoft or even things like Salesforce and so on, right? So you can very quickly start and start building an app. So I talked about Office 365 extensibility. It is fully integrated within the modern list experience, and we are working very closely, both the PowerApps and Flow team, with the SharePoint team to make sure this experience is integrated, and we know some of the other things. The next lookups already works. There is managed metadata, images, attachments, and so on that is needed for SharePoint lists to be completely useful in business processes, and those things we are working closely to get those in as quickly as possible. So one part of it was Office 365. The same is true for Dynamics 365 apps as well. So now if you are using CRM or AX, or as they will be known as Dynamics 365 for sales and operations and so on, we have connectors for these things too. So you could have your data in Dynamics CRM online today. You could just connect it to PowerApps and then build an app that mashes up data from within there and from Office, right? Just very similar to what you did with Office. So you could build these apps, custom apps that extend the capabilities of both Office 365 and Dynamics 365. And the next thing I want to talk about, and I will not be able to do justice in just 5 minutes talking about the Common Data Platform, so I encourage you to watch the deep dive that we had on Wednesday. I will have the session code at the end. The Common Data Platform is the data platform for all of our business application platform, or for Power Apps, for Flow, and going forward for Power BI, and for some of the other apps as well there. So what it is it's not just a storage, right? So out of the box, we will give you a bunch of standard entities. It's a business. It comes completely with a fully relational business database with a bunch of standard entities, and then you can extend these to create your custom entities, and between entities you can define relationships, and you will support a rich set of data types, enumerations, and so on. Now, in addition to giving you these entities which you can use to start storing your data or moving in existing data, what it also lets you do is it gives you an operational data store and analytical data store going forward. So Power BI can do get you insights over the same data. You can take actions using Power Apps and automate workflows using Flow. So this is where it ties it all together. So if your data either directly or indirectly exposed through the Common Data Platform, you can do all of these things in a very easy manner. So of course, there will be integration stories where you can sync data from other cloud and on-prem services, such as Office and Dynamics. So you could sync your contact, for example, and extend it with something else that you're doing with an event or a campaign, and that data could be stored in Common Data Platforms. This is an extensibility story where you could sync parts of your data from your existing services and extend it in the Common Data Platform, and then have a single unified view from the apps on top of them, from Power Apps as well as BI and so on. And the final thing here is you could also use the SDK directly to access the Common Data Platform. When you start using Common Data Platform, it's not necessary that you build a Power App to access that data. You could also do that from our Pro tools by using the SDK. So with that, we end with this picture, right? So there's Office 365, and there is all of our first-party apps, including Power BI and Cortana Intelligence and the whole Dynamics 365 suite. And on top of them, that is the Microsoft App Source, which is a place where you can acquire all of these solutions for your organization, as well as share solutions for your organization, as well as for partners to share them with customers and so on. And there is, of course, be third-party business applications that you will build or other ISVs would build. All of this sits atop a common application platform, which is PowerApps, Power BI Embedded, Flow, and the common data model. And it can all be extended using Azure, right, which is the pro extensibility. So with this picture, this is the complete picture. You could use the PowerApps to extend Office 365, to extend Dynamics 365, to integrate with other third-party business applications, and the common data platform, or do mashup scenarios between them, or completely atop the common data platform itself, right? So this is the whole picture. This is the whole picture of how all of your apps would talk to each other, and you can truly build custom solutions as needed by your business processes and your business requirements. Okay? With that, I want to switch over and now talk about extending the power of these apps themselves. Right? I talked about the pro tier after the power tier. There is so much I can do. I could do without writing code, and I can do a lot more as well, which I showed a demo of that. Now, what if you have custom business logic that you already have as part of an Azure Web Service or a function or something else? Or there is some more business logic that you want your pro devs to help out, that a business analyst or a power user is unable to write that. How do you deal with that, right? So any developers in the room? Forgot? All right. So good. That's like half the room. So and that's awesome. So this is how now developers can participate within PowerApps easily. So if you have a REST API, you can write a Swagger definition for that and use that right from within PowerApps and from Microsoft Flow, right? And you can just access it like any other function. So in my next demo, let me show you the common data platform and the custom APIs and how these things are used together. So for this demo, this is an airline inspection demo. I loaded it on a different machine to save some time. Let me see if that works. Yep. So this app here, as you can see, let me just run the app first. As you can see, this is a Fly Dubai app. This is branded for a specific customer with their colors and their logo and whatnot. What this does is, as an airline engine, so the airlines need routine maintenance for their, and there's strict quality control. This is an inspector walking around, right, who is going to inspect engines when it's due. So the first piece of this is how did we pick up the planes that the inspector needs to inspect? This data came from those sensors over to Power BI, and it produces this list. So once we have this list, and this data is now stored in the common data platform, so an inspector got a view of all of these planes that he needs to go and inspect for today. So today I need to go inspect this plane. I walk around there. I get some of this data, I get some of these insights saying what the history for this particular plane in this engine looks like. And this was last inspected by Frank. So let's see if we did a good job then. So if I go in here, as I go in, and this is my checklist, I can go ahead and inspect each of these parts. So one of these things, it needs an inspection. So I click on needs inspection, and here I can go ahead and schedule this inspection. So when I did schedule this inspection, what it does is it's calling an Azure function, which I'll show it to you in a minute, and it is getting me a list of available times. It looks like Pratap who's a senior engine specialist, is available to look at this plane on Monday, October 3rd. So let me go and schedule him, and I click notify, and this kicks off a flow that is going to notify Pratap. So that's what this app does. This is a business process for airline engine inspection, and this app is custom built for that purpose. Now let's go in and look under the hood of what data sources that this app uses. So here on the right, it uses a number of entities from the common data platform, right, which it combines into this app. The data over here is this piece is coming from Office 365, because this gives me the username, their department, their position, their phone number. And the final piece, the logic to get the schedule of who is the next available inspection slot. This is done using an API call, and this is a custom API. And I'll show you here. There's a service scheduling API. .getTimeSlot is the function exposed by that. And then this is the parameter passed is the entry that is here, which is the tail number of the aircraft. Okay? So this is how this app is built. It uses a common data platform, and it uses custom API to do the scheduling. Let me show you what that API looks like. So this API, which does the scheduling algorithm there, is actually an Azure function. Sorry about that. I picked the wrong. So this is an Azure function, and for those of you who are not use Azure function already, it's serverless execution of any custom logic that is written in any language, all the way. Like this is, in this case, it's written using C#. You could use Python, PHP, anything you're comfortable with. So we have an Azure function which is written by a developer to get a scheduling algorithm. This is a complex algorithm here, and what we do is we add 3 days and add some random number of seconds and return the value. So this is an Azure function, and it is then this exposes an endpoint over here which says PowerApps Azure function.azurewebsites.net. And so this is my REST API that I need to use in that application. And all I need to do is write a Swagger file, and we have documentation on how you can do this, and we are working on making this easier and more seamless. So this is the Swagger file for that particular custom API. And once I have this Swagger file, I go into PowerApps, add a new connection, and add this file. And now, as you can see from within my app, I'm just calling this like any function call. So what I wanted to show here is for every business app, you don't necessarily have to do this. You don't have to go this far. But if you do need to go and you need to call a custom API, the extensibility point exists, and it is very easy to use your existing functions by just creating a Swagger file and then using it from within your app. Okay, so that was how you can use common data model as well as custom APIs to extend the capabilities of PowerApps. And custom API, I showed you an example of an Azure function. It could be an Azure app service. It could be hosted anywhere, any REST endpoint, right? You could just call it using custom APIs using that mechanism. So this is what exists today. And so far, I showed you, and some of these things you might have already seen in the other sessions as well, but I wanted to spend some time talking about what's coming soon, right? This is a sneak peek of what's coming, in the near future, and these things will come out incrementally, and the final UI will, of course, change. So what I'm showing is screenshots of things that are either in development or in design right now. So the first big thing I want to talk about is reusable dynamic forms. So what this means is the current form building experience, as you saw, you pull in a form, you pick the right number of fields, and then the form is actually bound to that field, and both the size of that form as well as the field that is bound to is sort of static, right? If you go and change the fields, if you delete a field, your app would break, and you have to go and update that app. Plus, the same app does not work on your phone form factor and your tablet form factor, because you have to choose which form factor you build an app with. With dynamic reusable forms, you can define the form once, and a form consists of multiple fields and, and a certain layout. You can define it for once, and you can use the same form across multiple apps, right? You define logic in one place, and you can use that form in multiple apps. And it's also very dynamic, which is what you can do is you can define that form, and the layout, depending on the layout, it auto relayouts itself. So essentially, on a phone form factor, it would look like in that right form factor, and on a tablet, it would look wider. As well as the fields that are selected are also dynamic. That is, if you make changes to your data, if you change the schema, if you add 2 fields, they'll show up in the form. And if you delete a field from your schema, the apps will automatically reflect that in real time. So you don't have to go and make updates to these apps, right? So let's take a few. These are a few very, very early screenshots of what this might look like. So this is the new form builder experience, where you have a form designer, and all you do here is you pick fields and choose these fields of these data types go into the form. And once you have this form, this is PowerApps Studio. And within the studio, you could go and choose this form. All you need to do is choose this form and place it on the screen and with the default size. And since it's in a widescreen now, this is showing you all the records. And you click on an individual record, and here you see it has a camera control. It has all the fields which are part of that form. And the part is now if you shrink the size or if your layout changes, then the same form would show up in a different form factor. It would just automatically readjust itself without cutting out your data or looking too bad. Okay? So this is dynamic forms. This is one thing that's coming soon. And in the roadmap, I'll talk about timelines for all of these things. And the other thing that we are working on is administration and ALM capabilities, which are lacking today, which we don't have a lot of, but these are coming very, very soon too. So let's take a quick look at what some of these capabilities are. The first thing, of course, we will have is the ability to support multiple environments. So you could create an environment for a specific region or geo. If you are a globally distributed company, you could have an environment for US and for Canada and for Australia. And data, all of the data, including the apps, the flows, the common data platform, as well as the shared connections, live in that particular region. So this is one use case of that. So you can do that for compliance reasons, for governance, and for performance reasons. The second way you can use this is for your dev, test, prod environments. So you could create a separate development environment so that you're building apps in that one and then not in production, and then move those apps to production when they're ready for deployment. Because today, there's just one environment for your tenant, and you don't want to develop something in production and break existing users or cause this noise and friction. Okay? So this is the ALM story that we will have, which is rolling out again very soon. In addition to this, we'll have the admin center, which of course lets you do environment administration. I'll show you some screenshots in a minute. There is also policies that will allow you for data loss prevention, which is we have a number of SaaS connectors, but you can define rules and policies such that within your organization and within a specific environment where you have production and sensitive data, you can make sure your business data or your sensitive data never leaves your organization. And PowerApps and Flow both will adhere to these policies. The final thing is that each developer can, I talked about this, can create their own environment. So they are free to explore, and it's like a sandbox to do their own thing. And at a global level, you get visibility into all of these management environments, and you can manage these at scale. Okay? So quickly going into some of these mocks here. And these are, again, early mocks, which are in the design phase. This is some in the view of the admin portal, which is coming soon. And here you see a list of environments, and they are in different regions, and they're created by different people, right? You can go, and tenant admin would go and be able to look at all the environments for their tenant, and an environment admin would be able to look at a list of their environments. And you create a new environment, you have to pick a region, you can choose to provision a database, or you can add a database later. This is the common data model. It's optional when you create this. And then once you have an environment, we'll have specific roles here, who's an administrator, who's a maker, and who's just a user, as well as permission sets, especially for data. Within the common data model, this is specific runtime permissions on who can access what data. We'll start with entity level permissions and then extend to row and field level security as well. Okay? The final thing I wanted to touch upon in the roadmap part for the admin and ALM scenario is integration with AppSource. As some of you might already know, and AppSource also is in preview since July, so it exists out there. AppSource is a way for you to get business apps, to distribute business apps, as well as to acquire new apps, both for within your organization or from the public store. It's a marketplace for business apps. The organization gallery, of course, is restricted to your tenant or to your company. So this is how you will create and distribute PowerApps going forward. Right now, you just share it directly with people, but going forward, we'll distribute this through the organization gallery for AppSource, and which has role-based access control, and you can choose who sees what apps and so on. And from the public gallery, at some point in the future, you'll also be able to get apps from partners and deploy them within the context of your organization and make them available for your users. And finally, what this helps in is today, when an app, like you saw on my screen, I had hundreds of apps out there, and this will avoid overloading users and just allow them to pull the applications they need. Okay? So with that was a quick tour. Hope you found that useful. Some of the admin capabilities that are coming, and some of these very same questions was what I had heard from some of you and at the booth, as well as in some of the other sessions and roundtables. So I hope that addresses that. In the next section, we'll talk about customer stories. So what are some of our customers doing today with PowerApps, right? And so I said we have been in public preview since April 29, so it has been 4.5 months so far. And I'm happy to share that within these 4.5 months, we have seen a great reception, and we have more than 102,000 creators who have signed up and created apps or flows. This is used by more than 42,000 organizations and 137 countries. Okay? So this is the stats we have already. So thank you. I know many of you in this room have tried out PowerApps and contributed to this, and many more people in your organizations have. So I thank all of you for trying this out while it is in preview, giving us this feedback. And this feedback is essential for us to keep improving and making this service better for you. At the same time, some of our customers and partners have already gone into production, and some of them are in their pilot stage, and some of them are actually in production for some use cases. So let me quickly share some of these. So first one is for Mars. They use PowerApps today to build a solution for their for scheduling and the filling and refilling all of their coffee and their drink machines. This is a custom-built app for their business process, which the person who is driving the truck could actually use to get to the location and fill these things. Otherwise, that was a very manual process before that. Genie manufactures and lifts and elevators, is replacing a paper-based process which was required for quality control and inspection of these lifts for lift manufacturing using PowerApps, so that the right updated information is always there online, and you don't have to go through a printed booklet when you're doing an inspection which goes out of date, right? IPS, which is yet another, it's a very interesting app here. They are automating their equipment repair process, which was earlier, a bit of it was manual. They needed to take a bunch of pictures, store them somewhere, and enter it into multiple systems. They built a Power App to streamline all of this, so when an electric motor comes for repair at their shop, they have an app that guides the person there to take the right pictures, enter the right information in, and so on. And this is also replacing a paper-based process connecting to multiple data sources. TransAlta, we had a demo from TransAlta in Frank's session on Tuesday. So they are using an economic callouts app to determine the ROI of sending a field technician over versus not attending a particular service call. So that is a pretty awesome app too. This has already helped them save a whole bunch of money using this Power App, because without this, they would attend each and every field call or attend the wrong calls, where they would end up losing more than they spending more for fixing those issues rather than the benefits from those as well. So these are a few of the case studies. We could not cover all of them. And for the final case study, for the final customer story, I invite Michelle to come over and share what Avanade is doing with PowerApps and give us a quick demo of our app.
Hey, good morning, everybody. All right, so let's hook up the phone. So just a little background. Avanade, I work in our North America group for digital workplace transformation. So this is stuff that's near and dear to my heart personally. We've been using PowerApps for quite some time now. And we've played around with it a lot. And we've actually implemented this for ourselves in production in a pilot right now for our field sales. So our organization is 30,000 globally. Our problem is our field sellers have a lot of data they have to aggregate. We have a lot of offerings. We're a big company. All those are from different sources. We recently made the move to Office 365 as an entire organization. We consume a ton of Azure Video and a bunch of other services. So one of the key things that we saw value in with PowerApps was a nice way to aggregate all this data to our sellers in the palm of their hands when they're out selling, talking to customers. Another key thing, and we might talk about this in another slide, but I'll bring it up now, and we didn't cover it yet, is that we can use the PowerApps to deliver this content offline. So a lot of times we go into customers and we don't have access to Wi-Fi, we might not have a great cellular connection, and some of our growth markets, they may not have good coverage. So it allows our sellers to cache data on their phone for a demo, for a presentation, aggregate from many sources, show that to a customer offline. So that's huge for us, the ability to do that.
Do more.
Yeah, let's do that. All right. So this is our Power App that we've built for our sellers. As you can see, it's a pretty nice format. Most of our sellers makes it pretty easy for them to navigate. We're using the common data platform, common data model platform, to pull from multiple sources. So if I were to go into, let's say, our Avanade Insights, this is a feed from our website. This is our blog content. So a lot of times after one of our sellers meets with a customer, they may have had a conversation about digital workplace, and they might want to send this blog content to that customer as they walk out of the meeting. So we've integrated this with, so I can click on this. It'll click. Yeah, there we go. This launches into our blogs at Avanade, and then that seller can then take action via mail and send that particular piece of content to their customer after a meeting. Let me just navigate back. So some of the other stuff we're doing, we are doing integration with Office 365 to pull in contacts. So let's say I have someone out in the field, they need to figure out who the right person is within our global organization about IoT offerings. They can use this app to very quickly look up key contacts and then either call them, Skype them, IM them to get content. One of the other things here is we have this messaging app. I don't have any messages in my message app this morning, but let's say I have a seller out in the field and I want to send them a message about something that recently got updated in the content that we're aggregating. I can shoot them a quick message that'll show up here at the top. Here you see this hello Michelle, and I can say, hey, go check out our latest demos and our showcase demos, which then goes out to our showcase site, which is running in Azure. And then let's say I'm at a customer and I want to demo our manufacturing demo. They can quickly click on this, again, all mobile, and they can start demoing right from their device the latest and greatest showcase content that we have. Just need to authenticate that. And then they can scroll through this, read the reviews, make a comment, launch the demo, check out the PowerPoint deck, check out the videos, how do I run the demo? It's all in one place. Go back to PowerApps. The other thing you'll notice on all of our pages, we have the ability to rate that page and get feedback. So we're asking our people in the field, hey, is there something we could be doing better? Is there missing content? So they have the ability down here to rate the page. They can also put this in demo mode. So when we go into demo mode, it's not only a tool for our sellers to use to do their jobs, but they can also then demo the capability of PowerApps in a safe way. We filter content that's public facing when we go into demo mode. We automatically filter out anything that's internal consumption only, and it filters that public content so they can actually show this to the customer as an actual Power App. So has a couple of different functions. And in regards of time, you want to move to the...
Yeah, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, a round of applause for Michelle, please.